Hey friends, do you feel stiff and feeble? Did you know you don't have to experience those things? They're not from God. It's not just old age. We're going to come right back and we're going to bring some amazing information about stiffness and feebleness. All right, here we are. Tim Mann again, Church Builders International, bringing you this week's lesson in Virtual Healing School. Virtual Healing School is a Bible school with just one subject, and that subject is biblical healing. Each week here on this platform, Kingdom First TV, and many of the social media platforms, we bring you a lesson from the Bible. We deal with Bible healing, biblical healing. We're not against all the different healings that are in the world. There's medical science, prescription medicines and things like that. There's also holistic medicines. There's eating good food and drinking good water. All those things are viable. I take supplements, not against those kinds of things. But you know what? In the Bible, there is actually information and pathways that you can walk and be set free and healed from basically all the sicknesses that we find in the world today. So every week we bring you another lesson. Now this is the third lesson in a series that I have entitled Charting Your Course for Healing. Charting your course for healing, all right? And so you got to chart your course. You just can't sit and kind of cry, oh, Jesus, please heal me. Oh, Jesus, please heal me. That's not in the Bible. That is not charting your course for healing. In the Bible, especially in the Gospels, which is where healing begins, there is a roadmap on how to walk out your healing from where you are to where God desires for you to be. So those are the kind of things that we teach here, lessons for you to get on your journey of healing and health. All right, now this particular lesson, and then I think probably next week too, I'm going to teach on the subject of healing feebleness and stiffness. Healing feebleness and stiffness. Both of those words are in the Bible, okay? And the Greek words. You don't have to be feeble. You don't have to be sick. I'll tell you a little story. I got this from my dad, who's gone home to be with the Lord. He was in his late 50s, early 60s, and he was getting stiff. It made it hard for him to do things. He'd have different pains when he tried to do things. So he went to the doctor. He had a regular doctor, told her about it, and she smiled at him and said, "Welcome to old age." And I got to thinking when he told me that story, and I've done some research, you know what? Medical science has no cure for old age. They tell us everybody is going to experience these kinds of things. And I can't find that in the Bible. Not everybody experiences those kinds of things. Many of them live long, full lives, okay? Without stiffness, without feebleness. Here's a guy for you. His name's Moses. You remember Moses? Well, at the beginning of the book of Exodus, God wants to speak to Moses, so he causes a bush to burn up on the mountain. Moses, down at the base of the mountain, sees this burning bush. And he said, the bush burns, but it's not consumed. This has been going on for a while. So he climbed the mountain, getting pulled by the spiritual magnetism of God to find out what was going on up there. And according to the Jewish rabbis, the Jewish historians, this is their history going way back, Moses was 80 years of age at that time, and he was becoming feeble. He barely was able to climb up to see the burning bush. It took him quite a bit of time to go up there. Had to rest along the way, and he just couldn't do it barely because he was already getting feeble. And there, of course, he had his famous encounter with the Lord at the burning bush. He came down, went in, and then delivered the children of Israel. Well, for 40 years, Moses led them. He was 80 when he went up on the mountain. Then when he was 120, the Lord spoke to him. and said, it's time for you to die. I want you to go up on the mountain and I want you to die. So he climbed basically the same mountain. He went up there and he died. But this time he didn't struggle going up there. The Bible even says about Moses at that time, at 120, that his eye was not dim, nor was his natural force abated. The history of the rabbis say that Moses literally looked younger year after year after year, and by the time he was 120, he was almost looking like a middle-aged person again. He was being renewed. Well, that was Moses. Well, wait a minute. God didn't give Moses promises that he hasn't given to you and I. And I'm going to talk about these two subjects because let me tell you, not falsely or not intentionally, but society has put on us that as we age, we get feeble and we get weak until we can't walk and we can't do the things we used to. Well, that's really not true in the Bible, my friends, according to the Bible. And that's what we're going to study now. We're going to take as our text for today Matthew chapter 8, verse 17. Matthew chapter 8, verse 17. Now, for those who do believe in biblical healing, this is one of the pillar verses that we find for the subject of biblical healing. I quote this a lot. Many people I know quote this. Matthew 8:17 says that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, Himself, Jesus Himself, took our infirmities and bore our sicknesses, and by His stripes we were healed. You realize that Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection was the turning point for us way back then. Healing started in the ministry of Jesus, but it was purchased for you and I at the cross. He not only died for my sins, He took stripes upon His body for my infirmities and for my sicknesses, so that by His stripes I am healed. Right now, I am healed, okay? And so if I am healed now because of the work Jesus already did, then why am I becoming feeble? Why do I begin to, have weakness in my body because I'm now 72 years old at the time of this? Well, I pondered those words from my dad several times. And here about a year and a half ago, I began to realize, 2 years ago, around the time I turned 70, I guess, I began to feel stiffness. And I realized it had been coming on for several years and it was getting worse. And I really began to tackle this myself. Here this last summer, went out with my sons. I have 3 wonderful sons and they're adults. So we were out playing a round of golf. And so here I am playing golf and I bend over on the tee, what they call the place where you hit the ball the first time on a hole. And I couldn't get down low enough to get my tee into the ground the way I wanted it to be. Oh, my back was stiff and kind of not painful where you grab it and go, ow, but just kind of stiff and achy. And I couldn't seem to get low enough. And I realized it had been growing unto that. I'd been getting stiffer and stiffer and stiffer. And so I managed to finally get it. One of my sons even said that, Dad, you want me to tee the ball for you? I said, no, I'll get it. I get that. And I'm pushing down, trying to be able to get low enough to be able to get my golf tee and my golf ball down at the level that I wanted it to be. So after that, I began to study much more seriously. And let me tell you something, the things that I have found out the last 5 months, 6 months, where have I been? How come nobody taught me these things before? And I've started attacking back, and stiffness and feebleness has been departing from my life and from my wife's life. It was trying to come on her. And we're going the other direction. You're going to see me when I'm 10 years from now, and you're going to say, man, that guy looks younger now than when I first saw him when he was 72. That's what the Bible proclaims. Is it instant? Well, I think it could be, but come on now. I'll take it any way that I can. So let's go back here to Matthew 8:17. The middle of the verse. Himself took our infirmities and bore our sicknesses. This word infirmity is the Greek word asthenia. 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 Did you know that there are 5 different Greek words in the 4 Gospels? All 5 of these talking about different types of sicknesses and diseases, but yet they're all translated the same English words, sickness and or disease. Isn't that amazing? Wait a minute. Why did they do that? I began to study these things and I began to find out, wait a minute, this is talking about specific types of diseases, 5 different categories of diseases. And not only that, with these 5 different categories of diseases in the 4 Gospels, there are 49 stories or events of Jesus actually healing someone of these 5 different categories, one of them. And he used 9 different ways to heal them. Why? Well, he's dealing with different kinds of diseases that could come from different sources. So where it says himself took my infirmities, asthenia, and bore my sicknesses. Now let's just focus in this lesson on the word infirmity, okay? It's the Greek word asthenia, infirmity. Here's what it means. Ready? It means a weakness, a sickness that impairs somebody. In the New Testament, this word is used to be sick or weak, a lack of strength, feebleness. Isn't that something? This is the weakness, though. Now, here's the deal that actually follows the initial sickness. So it's really the second sickness that's in a train of sicknesses. The first sickness is what starts the sickness in your body, and this one kicks in after a short season and begins to weaken you. It's really translated a lot of times weak or weakened in the King James and in the New Testament. It is the following sickness that makes the person weak. The initial sickness didn't make the person weak. This one made the person weak. And the weakness, asthenia, begins then to incapacitate them. It may take a long period of time. This weakness is attributed, and we're going to bring this out here in a moment, in the New Testament to Satan and demons attacking our bodies from without, not from within. We are not possessed. They just come to steal, to kill, and to destroy. They attack us. Now, what kind of devil would he be if he wasn't trying to attack us? Now, I suppose the principal way that Satan tries to attack us is like he did with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. People tell me all the time, well, I don't believe in demons and devils. Have you ever read Genesis chapter 3? This thing all started with Adam and Eve in the garden being tempted or attacked, pyrazoed of the devil. Okay, he came after them. He didn't want them prospering. He didn't want them ruling and reigning. So he worked overtime there through words to deceive them, to get them to believe something different than God. Well, you know, they haven't changed a whole lot, all right? We hear words. Those words paint images and thoughts in our minds, and before long, we believe it to the point we start expecting it. Find me somebody that doesn't expect when they get into their 70s or 80s that they're going to be feeble, more feeble, they're going to be weak, they're going to be suffering stiffness in their joints and things like that. After, pondering my dad and what that doctor said, I've been doing research to find out, they don't have really any evidence. They can see evidence of feebleness and stiffness, but they don't know where it comes from. They have no cure, medical science. They have no cure for it. The most they can do is prescribe medications or get you to get over-the-counter medications, pain medications, and you begin then to get addicted to these medications, just trying to have a little bit of relief and a little bit of freedom from this stiffness and this feebleness that is trying to come on you and I. Medical science really doesn't know where it comes from. It'd be different if it was just one specific kind of disease or two, and they could identify that through their tests and things like that. They can't identify weakness. They can't identify feebleness. All they can do is measure your abilities to move and strength and things like that. They basically say it comes on everybody. They basically also say that it is hereditary. It's in our genes. Now, they can't find the feeble gene in our DNA. It ain't there, or if it is, they can't identify it. They can't identify the gene of stiffness in our DNA. They just accept that it is something that almost everybody experiences and that it is hereditary, that it is passed down from our parents. Even Christians like to get on the bandwagon with this, something that is passed down, a sickness and disease. One verse in the Old Testament that says that the curse is visited upon the children and the children's children, okay, because of the sins of the father. Wait a minute. My dad died a Christian. I was there next to him when he was led to the Lord. It was on Memorial Day weekend, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I graduated on that Friday evening from Bible college. They had driven out my mom and dad from Columbus, Ohio, to be there. They stayed with me a few days. We went to church on Sunday. Dr. Buddy Harrison, who was my pastor, Kenneth Hagin's son-in-law, served communion that day. And he said, now, I've never done this before. Here's a couple thousand people. He said, I've never done this before. He said, but today we're going to receive communion and we're going to pray the sinner's prayer before we do. So even if you prayed it before, pray it out loud with me. If you haven't, just pray it along with us, and then we're going to receive communion. And so I'm standing right next to my dad. I prayed the prayer out loud, and my dad prayed that prayer out loud, a salvation prayer. And then he received communion. I'm here to testify. From that day on, my dad began to change. One of the things that happened, he wasn't much of a cusser, but he quit cussing altogether. He started watching some ministers. He said, hey, what kind of minister? Because he lived in Columbus, I lived in Oklahoma. What kind of minister can I watch? And he said, I like some of the things you're teaching and things like that. So I got him watching Kenneth Copeland and Fred Price and some of these other ministers that I liked on TV. And he watched them religiously. He started going to church. He'd been raised in a Lutheran church. If you're Lutheran, don't take offense to this, but he didn't much like it. He said the best thing he got out of the Lutheran church on Sunday was a good nap, okay? So that was my dad. He grew up in Lutheran, and so he didn't go to church much growing up. And so anyway, he began to change. His lifestyle changed, his talk changed, his faith began to grow. My dad was a Christian. But then here we get now when he starts hitting in his middle 60s up to his early 70s now, this stiffness starts coming on. And he starts having weakness in being able to do certain things. And it seemed like he get a little older and he was weaker and he couldn't do things. He couldn't get down. He couldn't bend over and pick up stuff. And that's what I remembered when I'd be with him, because I lived one place and he lived another in two different states. And I'd be helping him in his little shop, and he dropped something and he said, bend down and pick that up for me. He said, I had trouble getting down. I'd bend down, pick it up for him. So then here I am, then this summer, 72 years old, trying to put my golf tee in the tee box, and I couldn't get down low enough to do it satisfactorily. And I have aches in my back trying to do that. And I just didn't seem to have the flexibility. Oh, it's a lack of exercise. Well, no, I mean, I'm not an expert exerciser, but I do exercises. I realized after that, I thought, this isn't right. This is an attack. This is a disease. This weakness is a product of something and not of God. I had all kinds of verses from the Bible by then. So it seems that this sickness, I'm not going to go into great detail on it today in this particular area, but it seems this kind of sickness is a form of sickness that follows another sickness in the New Testament. It's when that following sickness is beginning now to be a product, maybe not the first one, but this one, of attacking demons who follow after shortly by attacking and bringing weakness against us. You watch. Most people that have diagnosed with some kind of sickness and disease, especially if it's, anything, that requires maybe some surgery or whatever, maybe they had an injury, things like that. This one starts creeping in very, very quickly. Another example, early this spring, it was in the end of April, went out fishing. And me and some friends, we go out fishing up here the first day of fishing season, the last Saturday of April. And we're out fishing, and somewhere in there in the boat, the boat's gently rocking. I'm standing, I'm moving in the boat. And I think I twisted my knee a little bit. So we get back, and the next day my knee was kind of hurting. And I was like, wow. And so I realized, I've done something, and I move a certain way and it hurt. I started putting my faith on that. It was only about a week or two, and that pain just started fading away. But I found another pain then started in my leg. And then I attributed both of them to the same thing. And I realized, no, this is totally different. The first one, I could identify it. I could identify where it was. I could identify that it was I even had my my therapist that I go to once in a while. They're a disciple of my wife, Chris, and I. And we go there once a month and fellowship with her. She gives us a therapy type massage and so forth. And I had her check. She said, no, your tendons and ligaments are all fine, everything like that. And so I realized this is a different pain. Well, this went on, and I started using my faith. No, I'm not going to have this. This isn't God. I'm not having this. And so it started fading away. Then up here in northern Michigan on the shores of Lake Michigan. If you've never been to northern Michigan on Lake Michigan, it is unbelievably beautiful. So there's a national park up here called Sleeping Bear Dunes National Park. So it was in the first week or two of July. My grandkids was up here, my middle son, his wife, my two grandkids. And so one of the parts of the sand dunes at several hundred feet, you can climb. And so they said, Papa, let's climb the dunes. And so, I'd done it 34 years straight. This was the 35th year. So here I am out climbing the dunes, and my knee had been fine at that point. And about half, 3/4 of the way up, I realized my knee is really starting to hurt. So I said, okay, guys, it's far enough for Grandpa today. So I turned and started going back down. Time I got back down to the bottom of the dunes, I could hardly walk. What did I do? I have no idea I've never had that kind of issue before. Well, you're 72 years old and you're probably getting frail and feeble and stuff. I didn't accept that. And so I started attacking that with my faith, and it did go away. All right. By the time at the end of August, all that was gone, but I still had this stiffness. I couldn't seem to get rid of it. Okay. It followed a sickness. Maybe I pulled something. Maybe I twisted something on my knee. But then what followed was not that. It seemed like it was a stiffness and a feebleness that was trying to come on my body, period. In the New Testament, there's a disease that describes this with a single word. And that word is palsy. Palsy. Look it up, palsy, okay? And it is the following sickness that many times follows another disease, palsy. Palsy is a weakness in our limbs, losing the ability to properly walk or losing it, okay? It is to limit, or it limits full function. It can even keep growing and getting worse, requiring someone else to help or tend to us. Palsy is not the beginning sickness. Palsy is a following sickness. It's when these demons come to attack us. Now let me read what I'm talking about here. We're going to run out of time. And this is in Luke's Gospel, chapter 13. Go to start at verse 11. Go to read 11, 12, 13, and I'm going to jump down to 18. Luke 13, 11. Jesus is preaching in a synagogue, and it says, and behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity, asthenia, 18 years. She was bowed together and could in no wise lift herself up. We don't know how old this woman was, but she was in the synagogue. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said to her, woman. Now that word saw means to see with perception. It wasn't just seeing her. He was perceiving. Not a real good translation in our King James. This saw her should have been he started perceiving. When he looked at her, he perceived things about her. And it tells us some of those things, okay? He brought her, called her over. He said, woman, you are loose from your infirmity. He laid hands on her, and immediately, now that word immediately is the Greek word eutheos. I talk a lot about this here on my teaching in my classes, and it doesn't mean immediately. It means soon, shortly, in a reasonable period of time. There really aren't but maybe one or two instant miracles in the Gospels or in the whole Bible. It took time, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. He's ministering to her, and this thing begins to depart, and she gets straightened up. He's got hands laid on her. He's coaching her. Come on, now, that's right. You can stand now. This thing is leaving. He's loosing the anointing to fix in her body whatever this attacking spirit from the outside had tried to do. And the end result, she was made straight and glorified God. Now here's other things that Jesus saw. He saw when the ruler of the synagogue, the head rabbi, we call him today a senior pastor of a church, rebuked him. Jesus, rebuked Jesus. He said, there are 6 days that a person can be healed, but not on the Sabbath. Come on those 6 days, but never on the Sabbath to be healed. And Jesus turned to him and said, you hypocrite. He said, ought not this woman, here's one, being a daughter of Abraham. That's Old Testament covenant talk. She's in covenant with Abraham. We would say being saved today. She was as saved as she could be in that era. Whom Satan has bound these 18 years. Shouldn't she be loosed from this bondage on the Sabbath day? Jesus called these kinds of sicknesses bondage. He said that was Satan himself and his minions, these demons, attacking this woman from without that was causing this. He never did pray for her. He didn't pray for her to be healed. He loosed her. He had to deal with the spirit that was causing this, attacking her from without. Next week we'll get into a little bit about what demon possession is. This is not it, okay? She didn't have a demon living in her. She was being attacked straight up. It's hard for people. What do you mean I could be attacked by a devil? I don't ever see that. Yeah, but they talk to you and you know they do, okay? And so Jesus then heals this woman who was becoming feeble, very feeble. Now here's one of my favorite feeble verses. This is in Psalm 105, verse 37. I'm out of time. This will be my last verse today. Psalm 105, verse 37. This is King David, and in this psalm, Psalm 105, is when he is dedicating his tabernacle, the tent, when he brought the Ark of the Covenant back and put it under there. And then he sang this. It was a prophetic psalm. He was a psalmist. And one of this verse, Psalm 105, verse 37, says that God brought them forth also, this is talking about the children of Israel out of Egypt. God brought them forth also with silver and gold, and there was not one feeble person among their tribes. Not one feeble person. Okay, this would be the same word translated feeble in the New Testament, asthenia, only it's in Hebrew. Okay, same word. Now, according to church historians and rabbinical historians, there was upwards of 3+ million people that came out of Egypt. Think about that. They outnumbered the Egyptians, huge number of Jews, okay? And he led them. Now think about it. I live in the state of Michigan. A big city in Michigan most people have heard of is Detroit. We're talking about over 3 million people in Detroit. Imagine packing up the whole city of Detroit. No cars, no trucks, no ambulances, no wheelchairs, no crutches, no stretchers, and marching them from Detroit to Chicago in about 45, 50 days and not having any assistance. There's no feeble ones. The young ones, the old ones, nobody is feeble. Now that's what God can do to our generation. Don't you think it's time that you stop being feeble? That you stop being stiff, having these dull pains whenever you try to move? God has already purchased your healing from that. Hey, we're coming back next week and we're going to finish this particular lesson, and we're going to show you how Jesus has already healed feebleness. He's already delivered us from palsy. God bless you. See you next week.